welcome to EP Daily. Today on the show, we talk zombies with the latest on Dead Island 2 in the rundown.
Plus, Jose takes us on a tour of the new fighting game, JStars Victory VS Plus.
And then Scott and Marissa sink their teeth into some new content for I Am Bread. Also coming up, we dive into the massive RPG Pillars of Eternity, order up a classic Wii game, and much more today on EP Daily. Brought to you by EB Games. I'm your host, Victor Lucas, bringing you the latest in everything cool every single day. You know, when fighting zombies, you can use a blunt instrument, a shotgun, or a little thing I like to call the rundown. Here we go. You're going to have to wait a whole extra year to slay zombies in Dead Island 2. The new game was set to arrive late this spring or early summer, but has been delayed at the last minute to sometime in 2016. The developers say they need the extra time because they have so many ambitious goals for the game. They aim to tell an epic story in a massive open world with multiple characters, complete with co-op and a new combat system. Expect more details on Dead Island 2 in the coming months. The only good bug is a dead bug, and now you might be able to use your television set to squash them. A TV series based on the 1997 action movie Starship Troopers is in the works. Producer Neil H. Moritz made the announcement while speaking with HitFix, saying that they've been trying to get a new movie off the ground for years, but are now focusing on a small screen adaptation instead. Based on a novel of the same name, Starship Troopers was directed by RoboCop's Paul Verhoeven and told the story of futuristic Marines fighting a war against alien insects. Like Verhoeven's other work, the film is a thinly veiled critique of militarized violence. It remains to be seen if the show will dig up the same issues or stay true to the more pro-military themes of the original novel.
Would you like to know more?
A couple of disparate topics to talk about today. Here to help me with that is Marissa Roberto.
Hiya.
Starship Troopers, Are you a fan? Do you know this property?
You know what? I know of Starship Troopers,
Yes.
and I know that it's in my Netflix queue. I need to get to it still. It was before my time,
Yes.
So I didn't get into it at all. But I feel like it would make a good TV show.
Yeah, I think it would, and I think that there's a distinct lack of space-based type of television that's happening right now. You know,
like that.
Battlestar Galactica is gone. I think we could use something like this, as long as it sort of kept the tone of the Verhoeven movie,
Sure.
which I think elevated that property to a whole other level. It's fun that these Marines go on this mission to take out all of these aliens. That's a fun kind of surface premise. But the deeper dive that this guy went into, talking about the perils of fascism and the perils of just following the military-industrial complex to whatever end.
I like that, though.
That is awesome storytelling, and that's what elevated Starship Troopers to be a much more valuable film.
But do you want Denise Richards to be in the TV show?
Sure, she could be in the TV show.
Oh,
That'd be great.
okay.
Yeah, no, I think she was discovered, I think, for that first movie, and she was competent. I like Casper
Right.
Van Dien. It'd be good to see him working again on something like this.
Okay.
I have always had a huge fondness for Starship Troopers. I know Scott does too. It would be cool to have this as a TV show as long as it was done right, I think.
Of course, it has to be done right.
It has to be done right. Now, Dead Island 2 has been delayed by a whole year. That doesn't usually, you know, months we can kind of understand, but a whole year feels like you could almost start and finish a whole other game in a way, doesn't it?
Sure, but it does take a long time to make these things, and I am okay with games getting delayed
Me
if
too.
they're going to be good when they come out. They have
Right.
to be amazing. So clearly there's a big overhaul that needs to happen in maybe just a section of the game.
Yeah.
It just better be good, that's all. If you're gonna make us wait, it has to be good.
And the thing about the first Dead Island, I think it was a bit of a disappointment. They had this amazing trailer that trailblazed and got everybody excited for this thing, and then it came out and it was kind of, you know, a little wonky. The combat just didn't really sort of, your arms were kind of moving in weird ways, and just never felt like that connection, you know? It's always different, though, when a new team picks up a property that everybody knows and loves.
Yeah.
You have to kind of accommodate for that.
Well, fingers crossed.
Well, it's, you know what, it's a good sign that Deep Silver, the publisher, is giving the extra time. That means that they really believe in the future of this thing. Zombies in games, still need them.
I guess.
All right, well, right now it's time to go to the game JStars Victory versus Plus or VS Plus. Let's find out.
I'm not sure if you can tell, but Jason, Jose, we're JStars. And that's why we're talking about JStars Victory versus Plus. Now, this game, everybody was making a big hoopla about it in Japan because you've got so many characters coming together, but we never thought we would see it coming to the Western world. But it is. Finally, what can fans expect from this game?
It is pretty surprising. I think fans are going to be very excited. And it's really cool that even though the game did ship earlier this year in Japan, we are bringing it over to the West, and we're adding a brand new mode. We're actually adding a whole new platform. We're doing PlayStation 4 as well as PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita. Usually Japan always gets things a little bit before everybody else, and it always takes a while to get stuff brought over, but here was a game that people thought, oh, it'd be so amazing to bring over. We're never gonna see it. You're gonna see it. We're gonna even do something that Japan's not even seen.
What can we expect? What kind of game is this? When people hear JStars, I mean, I'm unfamiliar with the franchise, but what can people expect from this game?
There's been a couple games in the JStars series, but this game is set up as 2 versus 2 team battle. And what's amazing is it celebrates all things Shonen Jump. So all the different IPs and franchises and beloved mangas and anime characters are all rolled into one game. Obviously, it's not everything, but it's a pretty big list of people all playing side by side together. First time ever would you see Goku fighting alongside, you know, maybe Luffy from One Piece, or you've got Naruto jumping into the mix, or you've got Saint Seiya jumping in. Lots of different franchises all in one. Pick your teams, battle it out in the world, and go through the worlds that are very famous from Shonen Jump, the worlds of these franchises.
Sounds like it's some awesome, crazy dream. Like, I want to get all these characters together, put them in a game, and just have them beat the hell out of each other. How do you make this happen? And then they went and actually did it. Is this something that took quite a long time to make sure that you're getting all of these different properties right?
That's one of the challenges. First, not only making the concept for the game and getting all the coordination and working closely with all the different licenses, and we have some characters in the game that not known to be a fighting character, and now you're in a world where you got to battle. How do you portray that? A lot of things that weren't naturally taken from those worlds, and now we're bringing them into a crazy unified world. How does that change those characters? How do they all coexist and work together? So that's definitely a challenge. And then obviously the challenge of just in terms of the development in the game, implementing all the different character moves, the way they play together, the fun rivalry or the fun partnerships that you might get by joining certain characters together, and then obviously building on the gameplay. One thing that the fans in the Western audience is going to benefit is that because this game did come out earlier this year, a lot of great feedback from Japan fans to the producers and the dev team. A lot of those enhancements and things are going to carry over into the versions that come over in the West. So it's going to be even more of a plus than just the new mode, arcade mode, and the PlayStation 4.
Whoa, so many universes.
It's true. Hey, listen, after the break, Scott is getting crusty, and we're ODing on gluten after this. Welcome back to EP Daily. At night, when I go to sleep, I like to dream of 2 things.
Okay.
1, dream about Diego Luna. 2, bread.
You know, I don't know anything about this character, Diego Luna. It sounds made up, frankly. But I do know of a video game that you can play as a piece of bread.
What? No. We should review it.
Well, I think we should.
Okay. Smell of bread.
Did you fart?
No. I just love the smell of bread.
Sometimes my farts smell like bread.
I'm here with my friend Lofi.
Yeah, hi.
And we're reviewing a game called I Am Bread.
You know,
surprise.
I always watch you on TV. I'm a big fan of the show.
Oh my God, I'm a big fan of you.
I
love you so much. You keep me warm at night, Lofi.
I didn't know if I could even stand next to you because of, oh my God, this is such a moment for me.
Well, this is a moment for you. This is a moment for me because I've never actually reviewed anything with bread before. And I don't think I've ever played a video game with bread either.
This is one of those games that... This is one of those games that feels like, you know, maybe this was something that one game developer pitched to another game developer after, I don't know what you call it, those little cigarettes. Anyway, so they smoked some of that and they said, dude, what if we made a game where you were just a piece of bread and you had to get in a toaster?
So what we need to do is control the piece of bread by using the left and right bumpers and left and right triggers, and that can be very difficult, especially when you have a certain amount of time that you need to get to one place to the other, but also you can't be on the floor for very long because the dirtier your bread is, the less edible it is, and then you just can't win the level.
So the object of the game is to make your bread more edible and to not get it dirty. You can apply different things as you're moving around the level. You
like butter.
Well, I'm going to say something if you'd let me. It's hard for bread to get a word in edgewise when I'm working with you. This is not what I thought it would be like.
Hey, don't be crusty.
That was so terrible. But listen, if you get jam on you and you're a piece of bread, then you can stick to the wall. So one of your concerns as you're playing this game One of your concerns is that you only have a certain amount of grip, and there's a grip meter at the very top of the screen that deteriorates and depletes over the course of the level. So it's kind of like Shadow of the Colossus, which I played and which I finished because I'm great at video games. Loaf bread, king of video games.
Oh my God, how do you even play video games, Lofi?
Anyway, I'll tell you about it later over a drink. But listen, so you have to, if you have jam on your bread, you can just stick to the wall automatically. So you want to look for these things. You want to experiment as you're playing this game. It is a huge pain in the ass to not only figure out where you might be able to toast your bread, not just one side, but both sides.
So you got to
use different objects in the world. At one point, you can use a thing. You have one of those things that you use in your hair sometimes.
What?
A curling iron.
Oh, yeah.
You find a curling iron, put your bread in there. And it's harder than hell to get your bread to do anything. I threw my controller with my bread hands across the room at least 2 or 3 times because I was just overwhelmingly infuriated by this thing.
Okay, Lofi, how we like to do it on the show is we give it a score at the end to wrap it up.
6 out of 10.
6 from Lofi. I'm
That's
giving
right.
it a 7.
Okay. So I am bread a little overcooked to the point of being burnt, but still edible.
Yeah, I am still feeling a bit peckish, though. So let's stay on the theme of food, shall we?
We shall.
Here's Order Up.
Hey, we're here in downtown Toronto and at an appropriate place to review Order Up from Zoo Digital Publishing, a Cooking Mama clone that I think will surprise a few would-be chefs out there.
Has cooking become a new genre in video games?
Yeah,
Really? Seriously?
On the DS, the casual game space on PCs.
I was expecting Order Up to be brutal and not fun.
A discount game.
Yeah, absolutely. I was expecting it to be a total Cooking Mama ripoff and not anywhere near as good.
It is.
It is, but it also borrows, I think, from the Ratatouille kind of vibe as well. I think there's a real distinct sense of humor. And I gotta be honest, I had more fun playing this on the Wii than I had playing Cooking Mama on the Wii. I liked the storytelling and I liked the characters and I liked all the attention to detail on the voice acting.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of like Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah,
the characters remind me of that. You borrow money to open up a restaurant, and just like Cooking Mama, you're asked to cook dishes for customers, but it does have a lot of character, very funny dialogue. The patrons sort of saunter into the restaurant, grab a seat, and a really funny waitress goes over, and you hear the banter back and forth, and you're basically, the waitress gives you what they want, whether it's spaghetti and meatballs, or grilled cheese, or fried chicken, and you have to make it being the chef of this restaurant. There's some pretty funny names as well in there.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And what's going on is you're actually unlocking recipes as you work your way through, and you start off in a diner and you work your way up to a Mexican restaurant and then an Italian restaurant, and then finally you're into the fine dining, and you get critics coming out and health inspectors coming out, and
there's about 80 recipes for restaurants. And
finicky
it does
customers. Spices that you start adding to just give your dishes a little bit more perfection. Then you enter into a cooking competition, kind of like the Iron Chef a little bit, and you just win accolades and attention, and you see the newspapers land every day with more information. You earn big tips, and you're able to kind of clean up your restaurant.
I think the key differentiator between Order Up and Cooking Mama is that you're multitasking while you're making recipes. So, for example,
it's not always one at a time, right?
So if you're asked to make burger and fries, you can simultaneously throw a patty on the grill, throw the fries in the deep fryer, and start cutting up the tomatoes and lettuce all at the same time.
And that's just one plate, though. I mean, you can have 4 orders from a table and deal with all of the recipes on those 4 orders at the same time, if you have the multitasking skills. If you can.
And it's all on a timer, so you definitely have to consider multitasking, or you can drag and drop what you want your assistants to take care of if you can hire them.
Yes, and then if you're not happy with the presentation, if you only get a good rating instead of a perfect rating, chuck it in the garbage and start again, but that takes a little bit longer, and the longer you take, your tips start to go down. So there's definitely kind of a time, skill, rubbing your belly, patting your head type kind of sort of vibe to this whole experience. But I liked it, and I was entertained. It's not a sim game, it's more about entertainment and
it's like an interactive cartoon, and I think you hit the nail on the head, just being fun and entertaining, which sometimes game companies try to squeeze as many features as possible, but this was just funny because the writing was clever and the cartoony graphics were great. But I think it was just a fun game that is not easy when you have to start multitasking.
And I think a new company. I've never heard of Zoo, and I've never heard of the developer. I can't even remember the developer's name, but I hadn't heard of either of these guys. And I was very impressed. I was surprised, impressed, entertained. This would get my money.
Definitely. Order Up is a deliciously fun and entertaining game. I think you will not be disappointed. What do you give it?
Fun. I'm giving it an 8.
8 out of 10 for me as well.
All right.
I love those classic reviews, but who was that guy who Vic was working with? Was that Tommy before surgery number 6 or 7?
So mean.
So beautiful.
When we come back, Vic is going to conquer Pillars of Eternity with this guy.
That's right, sleeves rolled up after the break. Welcome back to EP Daily. You've got to love the good people at Obsidian Entertainment. They've made great games like Fallout New Vegas, South Park The Stick of Truth, and in 2012 they kickstarted a game and millions of people contributed to it. The result, a game called Pillars of Eternity. Eternity. Here's Vic and I with the review.
Kickstarter games don't always live up to their promises, but I think we've got one today that does. It's called Pillars of Eternity, at least in my estimation it does. This is from Obsidian Entertainment, an RPG vanguard. They've made lots of games that we've enjoyed in the past, but this one, it harkens back to the olden days.
Yeah, you're looking at your TV screens right now and you're thinking, well, this can't be the year 2015.
Is that how they're saying it?
That's how the old people talk. Because everything does look like it's 1989 all over again. The levels are very expansive, all the characters are very tiny, and in the wake of such great games like Skyrim and like Dragon Age, which are much more cinematic and much more produced or maybe even overproduced, this looks underproduced, it's a little undercooked, and it does harken back to the old school, you're right.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that because I can remember the era.
Obsidian and its team of developers, a lot of those guys were making those types of games back in the day, and it's interesting that Interplay and BioWare were working on different kinds of isometric RPGs. There was Neverwinter Nights, there was the Baldur's Gate series, or Planescape Torment. BioWare went in a different direction, I think, in a lot of ways than Obsidian did, but Obsidian has now worked on some pretty massive properties like Fallout, and I think it's interesting that they've gone back to their roots. Playing something like this, I couldn't help but think of Dragon Age Inquisition, and I couldn't help but feel like I was playing something that was analogous to Dragon Age Inquisition, even though the camera perspective is obviously flipped around. It's an isometric thing, top-down looking, and you're reading a ton in this game. It still is an incredibly satisfying role-playing experience where you're leveling up and encountering all kinds of really cool allies along the way and getting into fights with demonic creations. There's a lot more of strategic elements at play in this game, but it's just as thrilling and rewarding and as much escapism as Dragon Age Inquisition, which was our Rocket and Ray Gun Game of the Year winner last year.
You know, I've been complaining about lots of things on the show lately, and one of the things I complain about is always the look-back kind of games, like Shovel Knight, like Axiom Verge, games that are sort of riffing on games that were hugely successful in the 80s and 90s. This game does that, but I don't feel like there have been too many RPGs at this point that look back to this era from Neverwinter Nights and from Baldur's Gate, and so I was really ready for this, but you're exactly right. There's so much reading in this, and I mean, the fiction here is incredibly complicated, and some of the voice acting work is voiced, and some of it is stuff you just simply have to read on screen. Sometimes it's frustrating because you find yourself trying to invest more in the story, and you're excited by those moments that are voice acted.
We'll have to go around.
But then you're like, I guess I just have to read 4 or 5 pages of this text here, and it's always worth it, though. Every step of the way, the writing is excellent.
It is. There's a real spookiness to this thing. You are a watcher in this game, and this allows you to see the souls of people and read into the histories. You actually communicate with the dead, and of course you pick up a whole cavalcade of interesting characters along the way, and you fight all kinds of things. These little wispy types of creations that shoot electrical bolts were driving me crazy. It's also an incredibly difficult game, even at its easiest settings.
That's true. Not for me, but for regular gamers.
Onward!
What's what's cool is that it can stand right next to games like Skyrim and Dragon Age Inquisition and be a great alternative. You know, it doesn't feel like they're trying to copy anything. It just feels like a great deviation and a tribute to a golden age of game design.
The huge experiment was a success.
Yes.
I hope they make tons of money here. You guys should play this game. Pillars of Eternity. Victor Lucas, I need a score.
8.5 for me.
Gets an 8.5 from me as well. Deep, dark, and rich with tons of style. That game has eaten up about 90 hours of my life so far, and it's about to eat up more. And listen, coming up after the break, Vic and Marissa have the Twitter question of the day after this.
If you want more EP, go to our website, epn.tv, for bonus content and full episodes. We're also on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to EP Daily. It is now time for the best part of today's show. It is the Twitter question of the day. This one comes from City of Champions. Whoa,
wow.
Good one.
A whole
He's
city?
at Bifforama 94, I guess.
Okay.
93 must have been taken. Yep. He has a specific question for you, Victor Lucas. Where did you get the Raiders idol in the shelf in Vic's basement? Hashtag must have it now.
It's amazing. What it is, it's a little idol piggy bank, and it was a gift from my pal Scott Jones.
Aww,
he knows how much I love Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones, and he said this would be perfect in our shelves. Yeah. And it's now a set fixture on our podcast on Vic's Basement every week.
It does look nice.
I love that.
I know,
I
you
love
do
that
love
idol.
it.
I made a little Raiders sort of, a grouping of different collectibles.
It's true,
right
a little
there.
shrine
A
for
little
Raiders.
shrine for Raiders, yeah.
But you don't know where he got it from because people need to know where to get it.
I think comic stores.
Okay.
eBays,
all right.
that kind of thing.
Okay, so you gotta do some digging.
Yes,
all right.
you do.
We got more coming for you in an upcoming episode of EP Daily, including a look at a new adventure game that I think you should check out.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
EP would like to thank its sponsors, Nintendo, Xbox. EP's mobile coverage is brought to you by Gameloft, makers of Dragon Mania Legends, which you can play for free right now.
I love the retro tone that everything takes on here. And this is really just a puzzle-solving game, but it does have that overriding look and feel and nostalgic kind of touches to it that really bring the whole experience to life. But basically all you're doing is trying to navigate through this planet that looks kind of destroyed.
Spectaculon is host to the 150-year-old crash site of a gigantic star cruiser. Guess what? It's not made by humans.